I see you guys found that photo of me up there. I appreciate it. And I'm going to take a cue from Dr. Ruth and just start out with orgasm. Just gonna... That whole interview really laid my edges down in a way that I wasn't prepared for. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Congratulations to all the women here. Congratulations on your film. I know that the subject of tonight is risk. 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 And when I thought about risk, I thought of a few things. The first thing was, to be Black is to be a risk. To be a woman is to be a risk. Damn. When you're lit and the mic's lit too. To be queer is to be a risk. To be trans is to be a risk. I'm gonna take a risk tonight, and I wanna talk about, or today, who knows, at this altitude, Jesus. But I wanna talk about the relationship, a little bit, between Black feminists and white feminists. Here? You got me? Mic'd in? Okay, that's hot. In my mind, movies are important because they show us glimpses of ourselves. Movies can be reflections of who we are, reminders of where we've been, and dreams of where we want to go. Truly, I see the medium of film as a sort of time capsule, capable of capturing where we are in the moment and mirroring who we are as a society back to ourselves. It can be truly powerful. A couple of years back, I was here and I attended a women's celebration. And to be honest, when I was invited to speak here, I was a bit hesitant. Because sometimes I feel like women's celebrations that claim to encourage diversity can really be an excuse for cis, straight white women to be able to pat themselves on the back for vaguely promoting diversity while accidentally and sometimes deliberately silencing the voices of people of color and members of the LGBTQ community, period. But I said, you know what? If I do come speak at this, I do want to speak on that, because when I was here a couple of years ago, literally Google it, just type in, but don't do it now, Jessica Williams, Sundance, luncheon, women's celebration. The long and the short of it was that I was at a luncheon and they were trying to talk about diversity, and I tried to bring up issues that particularly affected people of color, how oftentimes if you are a person of color, especially if you're a trans person of color, you are at higher risk in this country, period. And what I was met with is this idea of white feminism. And I'm not saying white feminism in the sense that they are white feminists. I'm talking about it as an ideology, because you could be any race and have this idea of white feminism. But the idea was that because everyone struggled, which is true, I acknowledge that we cannot promote or help or value or acknowledge even where we are in this country. I find that now that I've had time to reflect on it, I thought about it, I've spoken to my therapist, Heather, about it for the last 2 years, really unpacked some trauma. But I have found that what I needed in that room was something that is not new. Since the beginning of our feminist movement, we had wonderful suffragettes who did amazing things, but still kept people of color at arm's length. And what does it mean to be intersectional? It means that sometimes, actually a lot of times, I wake up and I'm just angry. Because the people that came before me, my ancestors, lived and died, and I will never know their name. I recently took a DNA test, and I found out that I had a great-great-great-grandmother who, legend has it, a white man fell in love with her and raped her and left her on the side of a river. I don't even know her real name. I will never know her real name. To be a minority or intersectional in this country means that you have to wake up and sometimes choose what you want to be angry about. I wake up some days and I'm just upset because another fucking black man died by the police, period. So I have to choose to just be angry for being black. And then some days I wake up because I hear another asshole got off after admitting that he raped a woman when there's video footage. So then I'm upset about being a woman. And then on top of that, you talk about how dangerous it is for being a trans person in this country, period, and being a trans person of color. I can either choose, this is how my day can go. I can either choose to be upset and process that and do the emotional labor of having things that are unresolved in my family line and in myself. Or I can choose to put it in a little box, I can compartmentalize it, and I can, I don't know, prepare for my audition for Barry at 2:00 and try and learn my lines. Who knows? But the bottom line is, to be an intersectional person or a person of color in this country, you have to constantly do emotional labor, period. What this last election that we had was eye-opening. I mean, I was shocked and I was grieved. But I knew that that was there under the surface. A lot of black people knew that racism existed. Period. Well, it's funny, but also like, LOL, some white people did not know. And I feel like this election was important because it showed a lot of white people actually what's lurking under the surface. And so for me, sometimes with things like this, I have a hard time, especially if there's, a women's march, because I know how black women voted that day. I know that we could oftentimes be counted on to be reliable and get shit done because it's the right thing to do. I find that what I need from a lot of white feminists is acknowledgement and grace. I need the straight white feminists in the room to acknowledge, please, that life was and is exponentially more difficult for black women, queer women, and black trans women. I need it. We have to acknowledge that this country was built without regard for black bodies. We are the opposite of white men, period. And so we need to be held up and we need to be supported. And I know that you also have traumas of your own and women that have come before you that you will never know. But a part of healing and helping is actually acknowledging what we've been through. We have to acknowledge that black women are 22% more likely to die from heart disease than white women, that we are 71% more likely to die from cervical cancer than white women, that we are 243% more likely to die from pregnancy or childbirth-related causes. African American women are 2 times more likely to end up in jail than white women. We have to fully and accurately acknowledge where we come from as a country in order to have real discussions about true diversity in our everyday interactions and also in film. Truly being diverse is a high risk. I know that what I'm saying is obvious, but you would be surprised at how often we forget this truth. If you make space for our grief, then we feel heard. And what I have learned from my time in therapy with Heather, shout out to Heather, is that a lot of healing can come from being heard. So hear me now. I feel that we, as Black people, as intersectional feminists, as womanists, are always confronting the injustices in our country. We have to confront that our ancestors were murdered and lynched and raped. True justice requires that I must take the risk of working with white women while never being fully sure that when it comes down to it, you guys would have my back as much as I have yours. We play your Wakanda warriors, your badass lawyers, your nannies, your sassy sages, but I want to remind everyone that while we portray strength, we also have juicy, tender, sweet, and delicate insides. We are constantly having to choose between our Blackness and our womanhood, between carrying the genetically transmitted trauma of our ancestors, and many times we have to appear to be the pillar of strength, but we too need love and support and understanding and allyship. So what does allyship look like? Well, even though I know you've been through so much, there is still work to be done. We need you to take risks on us, and we need for you to really mean it. This means that as you continue to grow and succeed in your film careers, you will probably have the benefit of being able to get into higher level rooms that we still cannot. We need you to take a risk and be our allies in these moments. Advocate on our behalf however you can. We need you to pull us up with you. If there's a queer Latina woman who has never had a job outside of film but is excited and ambitious and capable of doing the work, take the risk and hire her. Take the risk and hire Black women darker than me, with different noses, skin like dark chocolate, curves for days, and kinky coily hair like clouds. Look up colorism because it's a thing. Don't ask us to do the work for you. Don't make us your personal Google, like literally look it up or read a book. And when we speak about trauma, please take the time to acknowledge and hear our pain. Just listen. If we are operating healthily, we are hopefully not attacking you, we are just processing. Please be unlike many of your foremothers and respect our voices, our history, and where we've come from, and also help us get to where we're trying to go. And on top of it all, please, 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 build up trans people at all costs and protect trans bodies. It is truly imperative that as white feminists and Black feminists or womanists, or however you choose to identify, that we finally come together and protect who we can and push for what's right and for what we believe in. But in order to do that, white liberal Hollywood and white feminists, we need you to take more risks on us so that we as a people can take more risks on you. Thank you for having me. Shout out to Planned Parenthood, yeah!